Hi, I'm Derek O'Reilly in Carmichael, and I want to tell you about the Charities Governance Code. Here's the code. It's downloadable from the Charities Regulator's website. It's designed for all registered charities. It explains minimum standards, and all charities must comply with this code. So it's very important that you take a look at this if you're on the board of a registered charity. What is the code? There are 6 governance principles. I'm going to go through the 6 principles very quickly for you. And attached to each of these principles, there are what are called core standards. So all charities must comply with the core standards. There are also additional standards. Some charities may decide they are a more complex organisation, and they will have to also look at the additional standards, and I'll come back to that later. What are the 6 principles? Number 1 is around advancing charitable purpose. Number 2 is behaving with integrity. Number 3 is leading people. Number 4 is exercising control. Number 5 is working effectively. Number 6 is being accountable and transparent. Now, if that terminology sounds familiar, it may be because you've already looked at the Voluntary Governance Code, which has been around for a number of years. If your organisation has completed that journey or has been on the journey recently, I think it will make this process easier. But it's not a copy and paste exercise. You do need to look at this code and comply with the various different requirements. How do you use this code? Well, you need to read through the principles and the standards, and then you decide on the actions that you need to put in place to comply with the standards. You also need to show evidence of compliance, so it's not just a matter of saying you're compliant, you need to have some evidence, which I'll come back to. How do you report on compliance? Well, there's a compliance record form. It looks like this. This is a hard copy, of course. It is on the Charities Regulator's website as well. Probably easier to actually download a copy onto a computer and complete the actual form on a computer. It may be no harm to print off copies as well and share them with other members of the board. So you need to actually complete this form and indicate that you are compliant once you've actually completed the form. You can indicate that in your annual report to the Charities Regulator. So you need to keep the form, keep the completed form, and then you will need to refresh the form every year. So obviously the first year is a bit of work. After that, then you just need to revisit the form, do a new version of the form for the next year, and keep all of those various forms as you go along. What's the timeline for this? Well, 2019 is the year to go through the code, so you need to be looking at it and discussing the code now. 2020, you need to be implementing the code, and in 2021, you will need to be reporting on your compliance to the regulator. So it's important that you give yourselves enough time to go through this. What do trustees need to do? Don't forget, trustees are board members. It's the trustees who are responsible for this, not staff members. So you can't relinquish this to a staff member. So the trustees need to go through this code, read it, decide if you're a more complex charity, and you'll see on the code it gives you certain criteria for deciding if you're complex. And that may well be around money, but it also may well be around the number of staff you have or the nature of the programs that you run. That's a decision for you to make. The regulator will not decide whether you're a complex charity or not. Identify who will lead the compliance process. So it's important that somebody takes the reins on this. You might have an individual on the board, or you might have a board subcommittee, and set timelines for completion of this process. So what do you need to do now? Go onto the regulator's website, charitiesregulator.ie, go into this section called Information for Charities, and then you'll see Charities Governance Code, so you can download both the code and the compliance record form there. Start having discussions now at your board meetings. You may well be able to use minuted decisions and actions from your board meetings by way of compliance with the code. So you can indicate we've discussed and decided on something, and that will be sufficient to comply with the code. Now, you may also need to look at some documentation to show by way of evidence, and that would be hopefully a straightforward process for you, but that is a piece of work that needs to be done. So not to be underestimated, I'd say get cracking as soon as possible, put it onto the agenda for your board meetings, for the next few board meetings at least, and good luck with it.